Welcome to the Burnout, where we help teachers and education professionals recharge their purpose, revise their passion, and regain their power. The show where we tackle the problems in education, one solution at a time. I'm your host, Kendria Johnson, and we look forward to helping you beat the burnout. And welcome to another episode of The Burnout. I am your host, Miss Kendria Johnson, and today I have Miss Ayesis Clay with me. Remember now, the burnout is a place where we make good teachers great by bringing them out of burnout and back into a balanced life. Miss Clay is an educator. And like me, she's an educational consultant. She hails from North Carolina, but she operates now out of the DC area. And I cannot wait for you to meet her. And Miss Clay, how are you doing today? Go ahead and introduce yourself to my audience and let us know what you have to offer and how you show up to the world. The floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Yes, I am so grateful to be here, first off. Because this is a mission that I also have kind of strapped to my back. And so I love the fact that that there are people out there who are putting educators at the forefront and not as an afterthought. Their mental wellness, the burnout, all of that. So it just really energizes me when I see other people who are also in this game. Actually, not in this game, in this fight. In this fight.
You're right,
Because
because it is
sometimes it
not a
does
game. It's
feel that.
not. It's
No,
not.
it is not. So yes, thank you for that wonderful welcome. Again, my name is Ayesis Clay, and I am a teacher first, an educator first. I taught in public school for over 17 years. I taught in the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services for 3, and now I teach at the collegiate level.
Okay.
But my story is very much why I started this journey. And
Wow.
this idea of burnout and this idea of emotional fatigue that
Mm.
education.
Mm-hmm.
And so as I said, just very quickly about my background and how we even got to this point.
Right.
um I started out teaching. I wasn't supposed to be a teacher in my mind. In my mind, I was going to be an actress.
Oh.
I went to theater. I went, I did that whole route.
Yeah.
And then when I got out, I fell in love and had babies and
Mm-hmm.
teaching. But I started teaching at the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services.
Oh.
And as you can imagine, there's so much trauma
Mm-hmm.
that
I can
happens
imagine.
in place. Yeah, you can
I
imagine.
can imagine.
And I was not prepared for that.
Mm-hmm.
I can say I wasn't prepared to teach, honestly, because again, I had not taken, but I had a passion for people,
Yeah.
and I knew people, and I was empathetic, and I think that is one of the major um, reasons why teachers excel, and
Yeah.
it's also a danger
Mm-hmm.
zone for teachers being very empathetic, because as we know, students are right now going through a lot of trauma. We are all going through
Exactly.
trauma right now.
Exactly.
um
So what do you
and
think?
a lot.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But what do you think out of all the things that we go through, what do you think the biggest issue with education is?
That is such a wide open question.
Mm-hmm.
I think right now the thing that I lean into is the emotional wellness of educators. That they are
Mm,
tired. We are tired. Not only are we dealing with burnout, a lot of times we use burnout as a catch-all
mm-hmm.
umbrella for what we're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are many different things at play. So when we have teachers who are dealing with burnout, dealing with compassion fatigue, dealing with secondary trauma, dealing with primary trauma,
Mm-hmm.
then we have a situation where they can't teach.
Yeah.
They can't be effective,
Mm-hmm.
period. And so I wouldn't say that it's the biggest problem, because in education we got issues, but that's where I lie. That's
Yes.
where the zone that I try to influence and try to help with, um, is that burnout, that emotional wellness piece, the burnout, the compassion fatigue, and the secondary trauma. And so when I talk about these things, a lot of times educators kind of give me a question mark look, like, I know what burnout is.
Yeah.
I know what that is, but I'm not familiar with the compassion fatigue. I don't know what you mean by that, or the secondary trauma. And so it first starts with educating ourselves on what those things are. So what I talk to educators about when I go into schools for professional developments, we start there. And we start with, what is it? So burnout is systemic. Burnout
Mm-hmm.
is systemic. Let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about that first.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not something that the actual educator themselves are doing. It is something, it is it's indicative of a broken system,
Mm-hmm.
where
Mm-hmm.
something is going wrong, where one person has to carry way too much weight, where a lot is asked for one person, and they're taking on and taking on and taking on
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities to the point where they feel like they're burned out. They're
Mm-hmm.
burned out and they cannot do that anymore. And I always stress to educators, it doesn't matter how good and how much you love your job. Burnout can hit you at any stage. But you
Yes.
can, and as you know, you can heal from burnout, but you can also revert back to practices. And, so it can be cyclical if you don't watch,
I
if you don't watch out
absolutely
for it.
agree. I absolutely agree 100% with everything that you're saying. And, as people who have gotten that formula, it's almost like a formula, right? It's almost like a secret, a secret
Mhm.
that no one really wants to talk about. Is something that's swept under the rug. You're from North Carolina, I'm from Texas. And it's just like that term that you use, compassion fatigue. The more you care, the more they put on you. Another teacher
Well,
friend of mine said she calls it donkey work. She says the more that you love what you do, they just pile it on you and make you keep going and keep going. So what do you think
yeah,
about,
yeah.
what's happening to the state of teachers in the world that we're living in now?
So it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It is heartbreaking because, as I said before, teachers are some of the most empathetic, some of the most hardworking, some of the most intelligent people that I know. And to see how society, and you know what, I'm going to make that even smaller, how
Mhm.
we in the United States of America are specifically, because I can't speak for international schools, I know for a fact from touring all across the United States, what's happening in these schools, um, by and large, is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. And I want to back up a little bit, because I started with this umbrella term of burnout, but burnout and compassion fatigue are two different things.
Mhm.
Burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary trauma are completely different. And so
Mm.
compassion fatigue is where you have been empathetic to the point of, you just uh, you are that teacher that students come to. You
Mhm.
are that student, that teacher that students confide in. And
Mhm.
so it gets to a point, especially if you have ACEs, if you have um, any sort of trauma in your background, personal trauma,
Mm.
it gets to the point where you're too tired to care anymore. It's like, you know what, you start losing that empathy, and you start saying, you know what, I don't, whatever, just finish my work.
Yes.
As long as this test is done, I don't even care.
Yes.
As long, I don't even care no more.
Mhm.
So that is that compassion fatigue, which is very different than burnout. On
Mhm.
the other end of that scale is secondary trauma. And again, you are that teacher who hears about all of these traumas that these students are going through, maybe your
Mhm.
colleagues are going through, and you start exhibiting symptoms of PTSD for
Mm.
things that never even happened to you. So you start, and this is kind of where I feel different points in my career, I dealt with all three.
Mm-hmm.
But to the point where I over obsessed on weekends. I can't even relax because I'm thinking about that child who is in this situation at home. Or, I'm so worried every time I look at the news that it's going to be one of mine. I know it's going to be one of mine. And it becomes this situation where you internalize all of the traumas that other people are feeling. So there's three different things that teachers can feel at any given moment. And at any given moment, they can feel, two of those things. They can be burnt out and dealing with secondary trauma or dealing with compassion fatigue. So, that's where I guess my ministry, if you will, lies, is educating us on the differences, and giving ways to kind of deal with and cope with and heal from some of these emotional traumas that we feel from teaching, so that we can be the dope teachers that we want to be.
The dope people that we started out being when we first started. Because I remember that girl when I first started, right? And you just transitioned perfectly to what I was about to ask you next, which was, what are the solutions? What things can we do as educators, especially if we still love what we do? I still love it. I go to work every day. But, I don't want to sacrifice my health, my mental health, my emotional health, my spiritual health, any health you can think of, to be there for these kids, and I need something that's concrete. Think about, Miss Clay, a year from now, someone sees this and they're decision makers, they're thought leaders, they're superintendents, they have money that they can burn. What are some things, if there was money, there was no object, what can we do to fix this issue?
So I always look at it like almost like a multi-headed, like an octopus or a multi-headed, monster, because there are many different ways that we can approach this, but it has to be approached from all different ways to really make a difference. So let's start first with systemic. Let's start first with the actual organization. And there are several different ways. First and foremost, listen to your educators. Survey them. Figure out where they fall. Because again, if the majority of your staff is not dealing with secondary trauma or not dealing with, certain things, if you start, you're not helping them. And I hear that from so many teachers all the time. They give us PD that we don't need. They give us things we don't need because they don't listen. So you have to know exactly what your educators are dealing with. Survey them, listen to them, figure out what it is first and foremost. All right. Then we really need to start thinking, again, still in the systemic way. We need to start thinking about how we are, or the amount of work that we are asking. One of the big things in a school district that I support is that they get a lot of new initiatives. Every year, it's a new initiative, and they don't give it enough time to actually work. And
thousands and thousands of dollars too.
Thousands of dollars too. But on the teacher end of it, teachers are spinning their wheels, trying to get caught up in this new initiative. And then just when they get their feet up under them, which is really around Q3, when they really start digging in and getting, used to this process, the very next year, there's another thing that's added. Or we're going to take this away because no, we want to do this instead. So that creates systemically a problem with teachers, where they always feel like they're never caught up. We always feel like we always have to catch up because it's always something new. There's always something new on our plate that we got to learn and institute, and with fidelity, and the systems aren't rolling them out with fidelity. So that would be the second thing. Look at the things that you are rolling out, and make sure that it's something that, as a district, as a school, you are going to spend at least 2 or 3 years with, so that you can actually see if it works or not. But then, and there are several other things as far as systemically, but I also wanted to talk about what we can do personally. As educators, what we can do. So I have a 5-step process, a 5-pronged process, because it's not necessarily step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4.
Okay.
A 5-pronged process called the magic method. It's something
Cool.
that I use with my educators.
Mm-hmm.
And it includes mindfulness, it includes authentic connections, guarding against your work defining you. And we're going to talk about that in a second.
Right.
Intentional and preventative self-care, and creativity. And creativity is a big one. Is a big one for me. But I want to go back really quickly about guarding against your work defining you. Mm-hmm. That is actually the first question that I ask in every professional development that I go into. I put up this big quote, this huge quote, and it says, "It's who I am, not what I do." And I ask everyone, how many people believe this? And the amount of hands that go up, it's usually at least 75% of the hands in the room, you know? And that is very telling about our profession, right?
Yes.
Very telling. So teaching is who I am, not what I do. That tells me a couple of things. That tells me that we are going above and beyond, beyond our scheduled, school day. It's telling me that we are willing to do more than what's required, and that we're putting other things in front of us or ahead of us. And so I start talking to them, and we talk about that whole superhero mentality. You hear that a lot. I've been saying this for, when did I start PDs? Maybe 3 years ago. Right, actually in the pandemic, and teachers are superheroes. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not. We're not. Heroic things, and we can seem like heroes, but when we start talking about being superheroes, that means we put everything and everybody's well-being above our own. We're the first ones to run in. We're the first ones to make it right. We are the ones that can fix this.
Yes.
No. It takes a community to fix things. It takes a world. It takes non-crooked politicians to fix things. It takes more than just one person. And so when we start looking at ourselves and defining ourselves as what we do, it becomes problematic. So we start looking at what other things are we, and making sure that we are leaning into those things, making sure that we are intentionally leaning into those things. Because let's be honest, those are the things that make us really good teachers, right? Being able to relate, being able to bring real world applications to students. And we can't do that if all we are teachers. Teacher, curriculum kids. No, we are full humans. And so a lot of my work goes into that. And very quickly, like I said, it's a 5-pronged method, and with mindfulness and creativity being the 2 anchors. And a lot of people think that mindfulness is much bigger than it actually is, or much harder than it actually is. And it's just about being present. It's just about being present. One of the things, and teachers are always like, oh my God, time.
Yeah.
I don't have enough time. And I will offer this. This is an exercise I do with my schools. Take 30 seconds. We all got 30 seconds.
Yep, we do.
30 class. Between every class, we at least got 30 seconds that we can breathe. Right? So in that 30 seconds, sit and try to find the smallest sound that you can find. Try to listen to the smallest sound. Now, if you're in a school building, there will be like kids in the hallway. There'll be, maybe announcements going on, all kinds of things that are happening. But sit and try to find the smallest sound that you possibly can. What that does is it stops the hamster wheel of our mind.
Yes. For
just 30 seconds. Now, I say 1 minute. 1 minute is really what you kind of need.
Right.
But people are like, oh my God, we only have 3 minutes in between classes. I can't take a whole minute because I got to get ready for the next class. Okay, take 30 seconds. Take 30 seconds. Find the smallest sound. And that in itself is an entryway into mindfulness.
Wow.
Being and allowing your body to reset.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. And then the last thing that I'm going to share is exploring your story. You know, creativity is one of my 5 points. And that's really what helped me. That's what helped me. I have a solo show that's actually a part of my professional development.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times teachers have this idea about professional development that are like, again.
Oh.
And so I capture them, right? Capture them with entertainment first.
Yeah.
And that entertainment shows a journey of an educator, you know, like you said earlier, you know, that girl that came into education just on
Yes.
fire.
Yeah.
And, you know, shows that journey,
Yeah.
but then dealing with compassion fatigue, and then ultimately dealing with secondary trauma. And it gives them an opportunity to explore their journeys, you know, it's without the weight of kind of like having to tell people, looking at that journey. And then afterwards we dig in. So I encourage educators to explore their story, whether it's through journaling, whether it is through writing a book, whether it's
Yeah.
through writing a solo show like I did, or maybe even a book of poetry. And so I have a program called Right to Create that helps
Yes.
educators do
Yes.
that.
Good. It's almost like you're reading my mind about what I'm about to ask you next. Like, okay, what is a program that you have, Ms. Clay, that they can look up, they can look you up? Is there anything else? Even though it took everything in my power while you were speaking, not to be like, preach, you know, because I'm not in church. This is a dignified programmer running here, Miss Johnson. Okay, you have to let her speak, because I preach. I almost pushed the mute button and, you know, had church over here. However, I hope all of my audience got all of those nuggets. As a matter of fact, when I promote this episode, I'm going to say, girl, now, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to get some paper and pen and write this down, because you're speaking to the choir with me, but you're saying the things that I've said here, and you're welcome at any time to come to the Middle East and help me do one of these workshops over here and teach these teachers the exact same thing. Because what is happening, I'm going to be real brief, and then I'm going to let you give us some closing thoughts. Is what has happened is that they've changed locations, but their mindset has not changed. Behaviors have not changed. And they brought some of those same things that you were talking about right over here to this Middle East, thinking, you know, I'm in a different place. But you can cry to stay in a different place. You can cry by the sea, you can cry by the ocean, you can cry on vacation, you can cry on the mountaintop. If you're still crying, then the issue is coming from within. So, I mean, everything you were saying was right on point. I love your 5 points. I can't wait to see that in a book. In a book one day. I can't wait to see that with your name on it, because I can say I knew you win.
It's
And
coming. It's coming.
yeah, all right. It's okay. So you heard that, right? You heard that. It's on tape. So we're gonna hold you to it. So is there any closing words, closing thoughts, and let us know where they can find you? Give us all of your contact information. It will be posted with this episode, but if you want to share anything you got coming up.
Yeah. So, like I said, I have a Right to Create.
Okay.
It is an online program for educators. And next summer in July, well, summer 2024, we'll be having our next retreat in Puerto Rico. So
Cool.
it is a Right to Create retreat. So that it is really focused on removing educators from their entire environment,
Yes.
and healing, putting a lot of these 5 prongs into place,
Yes.
and creating a habit, or creating the basis for a habit. So when they come back, they can be, you know, that educator that they want to be. So if you're interested in that, of course, make sure that you follow me. You can always follow me on Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram tag is at sculpted clay, and on let's see, Facebook. Yes, I'm on Facebook, at Ayesis, Ayesis. And then last but not least, if there's anyone who's interested in professional development, for their school, for their district, they can reach me at my website at www.sculptedclayproductions.com.
And you heard it here first. You heard it here first. So that's going to do it for us this evening. I appreciate you coming on, Miss Clay. I know I keep calling you Miss Clay because it's habit. It's habit. When I see a fellow educator, I can't help it. I go to the grocery store. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you, Miss Jones. I just can't help it. But I hope to meet you again. I hope that we maybe meet in person one day. Maybe we can do some events together when I make it back to the States. And then I can probably call you by your first name eventually. But right now you're Mrs. Clay for me because you are my shero. You are my shero. And I could talk to you all
Oh,
day, but I'm going to wrap this up today right now and just say to my audience, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate your time because I know you're a busy lady. As most of us are. But just like you said, if you don't have 30 seconds for yourself, come on. Come on. You're giving away all this time to other people. Take 30 seconds for yourself. Remember what she said, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that you are the most important human resources in that building. And that's going to do it for me today. I'm going to wrap this thing up by saying I am Kendria Johnson, your teacher coach. I make good teachers great by bringing them out of burnout back into a balanced life. That's going to do it for me today. See y'all next time.